The first time I saw a cockatoo, I didn't know what a crest meant. I didn't know what pinning was. I didn't know they could bite through a broomstick or scream at 120 decibels or live longer than most marriages. I knew nothing. And I walked into a room with a bird I'd never met and understood it in under 5 minutes. Not because I was gifted, not because I'd secretly studied parrots on the internet, because the cockatoo was speaking so clearly that the only qualification I needed was the willingness to watch without deciding in advance what I was supposed to see. There were experienced bird people in that room. People who had owned cockatoos for a decade. People who could name every subspecies, recite pellet nutritional profiles, and explain the difference between a moluccan and an umbrella from across a parking lot. And every single one of them missed what the bird was saying. Not because they weren't smart, because they were too trained. And the thing about cockatoos, the thing nobody tells you, is that they didn't evolve to be understood by experts. They evolved to be understood by anyone. And sometimes the person who reads them best is the one who knows nothing at all. Subscribe, because what you're about to hear will change how you listen to your own bird. Here's what happened in that room. The crest told me everything before anyone spoke. The cockatoo was on a perch in the corner. White feathers, sulfur crest, dark eyes tracking every human in the room with a focus that felt older than the bird itself. Someone was talking to me about the bird's history, rescue, rehomed twice, behavioral issues, the usual narrative that follows a cockatoo through its file like a criminal record. And while they talked, I wasn't listening. I was watching the crest. I didn't know what it meant. I hadn't read a single article, but I watched it move, and I felt what it meant in the same place I feel anything, my gut. When a new person walked through the doorway, the crest slammed flat against the skull so fast it looked mechanical, and something inside me understood that instantly. Not as bird behavior, as fear, pure, unmistakable, mammalian-readable fear. When the room quieted, the crest lifted slowly, not all the way, just halfway, hovering in a position that looked like caution, like a person standing in a doorway deciding whether to come in. And when someone laughed too loudly, it fanned wide and the bird shifted backward on the perch, and I felt my own body tense before my brain caught up. I didn't need to be told what the crest meant. No one does. A cockatoo's crest is the most emotionally transparent signal in the entire animal kingdom. It is not coded, it is not subtle, it broadcasts emotional state with a clarity that crosses every species barrier because it was designed to. In the wild, every creature sharing the canopy with a cockatoo, other birds, mammals, reptiles, needs to be able to read that crest at a glance. Is this bird calm? Is this bird afraid? Is this bird about to erupt? The signal exists for everyone, not for experts. The experienced people in the room had learned to categorize crests. Flat means fear, raised means excitement, full fan means arousal. They'd turned a feeling into a vocabulary list. And in doing so, they'd added a processing step between the signal and their response, a delay filled with labeling and assessment that replaced the immediacy of just feeling what the bird was showing them. I had no labels, I had no categories, I just watched and felt. And the crest was louder than anything anyone in the room was saying. The bite warning was meant for me, and I heard it. Sometime later, maybe 20 minutes in, someone reached toward the cockatoo, confident, practiced, the kind of reach that comes from years of handling birds. And in the second before their hand arrived, the cockatoo changed. The pupils began pinning, rapid, rhythmic contractions I could see from 6 feet away. The feathers compressed, not fluffed, not relaxed, vacuumed tight against the body like the bird was shrinking into its own skeleton. The feet resettled on the perch, toes tightening, and the eyes locked, not scanning, not tracking, locked onto the approaching hand with a stillness that made the air in the room feel different. I stepped back. I didn't know cockatoos bite. I didn't know what pinning meant. I didn't know the body language sequence. I just felt, in my chest, in my legs, in the part of my brain that predates language, that something was about to happen, and I should not be close to it. The experienced person kept reaching. They'd seen this before. They knew the bird was being difficult. They had a technique for this. The bird bit. Hard. Blood. And while the room reacted, I stood in the corner thinking something I couldn't articulate until much later. The bird warned everyone in this room, using signals so ancient and so universal that my body understood them before my brain knew what a cockatoo was. And the person who got bitten was the only one who didn't listen. Not because they couldn't hear it, because they'd learned to override it. They'd been taught that experience means knowing better than your instincts. And the cockatoo's warning system, designed to be legible to every living creature in the environment, was defeated not by ignorance but by expertise. The distress called for silence. I was the only one who gave it. After the bite, the cockatoo unraveled, pacing the perch, wing lifting in sharp, snapping bursts. Vocalizations that were not screams, sharper than that, thinner, coming from a place that sounded less like anger and more like a creature who had run out of ways to be understood. The experienced people moved in. One spoke in a low voice using what I later learned was a calming technique. Another offered a treat to redirect. A third repositioned the perch to create distance. All of it trained, all of it well-intentioned. And the bird got worse. Not slightly, measurably. Every intervention was another stimulus arriving in a system that was already overloaded. The voice, however calm, was still a voice. The treat was still a hand. The perch movement was still change in an environment that needed to stop changing. I did nothing. Not strategically. Not because I knew what to do. Because I didn't know what to do. I froze. I lowered my eyes. I stopped moving. I made myself small and still and quiet. Not as a technique, but as an instinct. The same instinct that makes a person go motionless when they sense tension in a room they don't understand. And the cockatoo stopped. Not immediately. Over about 2 minutes. The pacing slowed, the wing lifting softened, the vocalizations dropped to a low murmur, and then to silence. And then the bird turned, looked directly at me, the one person who had done nothing, and something in the posture shifted, not toward aggression, not toward fear, toward orientation. I was the calm in the room, not because I was skilled, because I was honest. Honestly still, honestly quiet, honestly uncertain, and a cockatoo who was drowning in trained responses from every direction found the one presence that wasn't performing and oriented toward it like a compass finding north. In the wild, when a flock member is distressed, the surrounding birds don't intervene. They go still, they go quiet, they reduce their output. They become the emotional baseline the distressed bird can regulate against. Not by doing something, by being something. Calm, present, undemanding, available. I did that by accident. The experts in the room couldn't do it on purpose, because their training told them that distress requires action. And the cockatoo taught everyone in that room the same lesson in 2 minutes. The correct response to a bird who is overwhelmed is not more input, it is less. The bird chose the person who asked for nothing. I wasn't trying to hold the cockatoo. I wasn't extending my hand. I wasn't positioning myself as an option. I was standing near the wall, watching, being the quietest thing in a room full of people who wanted the bird to do something. And the cockatoo, who had bitten one person, rejected 2 others, and spent 20 minutes evaluating every human in the space, climbed down from the perch, walked across the table, and stepped onto my hand. I hadn't offered it. I'd rested it on the table's edge without thinking, and the cockatoo walked onto it the way you'd walk into a room where no one was going to ask you any questions. I stood there with a bird on my hand and the room went silent. Not because it was dramatic, because every experienced person in that room understood something they didn't want to admit. The bird chose the person with 0 experience. Not despite the inexperience, because of what the inexperience made possible. I had no techniques, no agenda, no history of trying to make birds do things, no unconscious body language pattern trained into me by years of step-up commands and treat luring and handling sessions. I was a blank page. And a cockatoo, a species that can detect the difference between genuine stillness and performed stillness, between real calm and technique-driven calm, between a human who is present and a human who is managing. Read every page in the room and walk to the only one with nothing written on it. What the room taught me, what it should teach you. That encounter broke something open. Not about cockatoos, about how we approach them. And if you own a cockatoo, or love a cockatoo, or are trying to understand a cockatoo, what came out of that broken open space might matter more than anything a training manual will ever tell you. Cockatoo body language is not a code, it is an emotion. And the more analytically you approach it, the more you try to categorize and label and process it through frameworks, the further you get from what the bird is actually showing you. The crest is not a vocabulary word. It is a feeling happening in real time. And your body already knows how to read feelings. You've been doing it with other humans since before you could speak. The same system works with cockatoos, if you let it. Cockatoos test authenticity, not competence. They don't care how many birds you've owned. They don't care how many books you've read. They care whether the calmness in your body is real or manufactured, whether your stillness is genuine or strategic, whether you are present with them or present at them. And they know the difference faster than you think you're projecting it. When a cockatoo is distressed, Doing nothing is almost always more correct than doing something. Every instinct parrot culture has trained into you. Redirect, offer a treat, speak calmly, change the environment, is an intervention. And an intervention is a stimulus. And a stimulus arriving in an overloaded system makes the overload worse. Sometimes the bravest and most effective thing you can do for your cockatoo is stop. Go still, go quiet. Let the room become something they can regulate against instead of something they have to survive. Cockatoos choose people based on energy, not resume. They will walk past the person who has owned 6 parrots and step onto the hand of someone who has never touched a bird, if that hand belongs to a body that is honestly still, honestly present, and honestly making no demands. And the deepest principle underneath all of it, the one I didn't understand until long after I left that room, is that understanding a cockatoo requires unlearning, not learning. The human compulsion to manage, to fix, to direct, to make things happen according to our timeline and our expectations, that compulsion is the single biggest barrier between you and your cockatoo's trust. Replacing it with the willingness to simply be present, to let the cockatoo decide what happens next, to trust that the bird knows what they need and will show you if you stop telling them first, that is not a technique, that is a surrender, and cockatoos can feel the difference. You don't need more experience to understand your cockatoo. You don't need more books or more videos or more years. You already feel things about your bird that you dismiss because you think you're not qualified to trust them. You are. Your cockatoo didn't evolve to be decoded by specialists. They evolved to be understood by any living creature willing to stop performing and start paying attention. The reason that beginner in that room understood a cockatoo with 0 experience is the same reason you understand yours more than you give yourself credit for. You just need to stop studying them long enough to hear what you already know. Like if you've always felt something your cockatoo was saying before you had the words, and subscribe because this channel will always trust your instincts as much as your bird does.